Imagine a time when there was nothing, no sky, no earth, no stars, no life. Just a vast, endless void called chaos. It was a place of complete darkness, silent and empty, stretching forever. But then something changed. From chaos, the first forces of existence were born. There was Gaia, the earth, solid and nurturing. There was Tartarus, the deep abyss, dark and mysterious. And then came Eros, the force of love, which would later bring everything together. These powerful forces did not simply appear. They emerged naturally, shaping the universe bit by bit. This was the beginning of everything. The start of the world as we know it. As Gaia took form, she became the foundation of all life. She was strong and eternal, the mother of everything that would exist. From her, mountains rose, rivers flowed, and the sky stretched above. But the sky was empty, and the earth was alone. So, Gaia created Uranus, the sky, to be her equal. He spread himself over her, protecting and covering her completely. Together, they were the first true parents of the world. But their union was not just peaceful creation. It also led to conflicts that would shape the future. Their children would soon challenge their rule, and the world would change forever. Gaia and Uranus had many children, but they were not ordinary. Among them were the Titans, powerful beings who would one day rule. But there were also others. Giant, monstrous creatures like the Cyclopes, with one eye, and the Hecatoncheires, with 100 arms. Uranus feared these monstrous children. He saw them as threats and decided to lock them away deep inside Gaia, imprisoning them in darkness. This caused Gaia unbearable pain. She loved all her children, and she could not let Uranus continue his cruel rule. So she planned something shocking. A rebellion against her own husband, a fight that would change everything. Gaia could no longer bear the suffering caused by Uranus. She called upon her Titan children, asking them to stand against their father. But fear held them back, except for one. Cronus, the youngest and most ambitious Titan, stepped forward. He was clever and ruthless, willing to do what others would not. Gaia handed him a sharp sickle made of unbreakable stone, and together they set a trap. One night, as Uranus descended to embrace Gaia, Cronus struck. With one powerful swing, he wounded his father, weakening his rule forever. The sky itself trembled, and Uranus, in his pain, cursed his son, warning that one day he too would be overthrown. His blood spilled across the earth, giving birth to new powerful beings. Some beautiful, like the goddess Aphrodite, and some terrifying, like the vengeful Furies. With Uranus defeated, Cronus declared himself ruler of the world. He freed his Titan siblings and established a new era, known as the Golden Age. The world flourished under his rule, rivers flowed, plants grew, and peace seemed to reign. But Cronus carried his father's curse, a warning that he too would be overthrown by his own child. Fear consumed him. He refused to take chances and made a cruel decision. Every time his wife, Rhea, gave birth, he swallowed the child whole, trapping them inside him. One by one, his children disappeared. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, swallowed before they could ever see the world. Rhea was devastated, watching helplessly as her children vanished. But deep inside, she knew she had to act, just as Gaia once had. When Rhea was pregnant with her 6th child, she could not bear to lose another. She sought help from Gaia, who guided her in a desperate plan. When the baby was born, Rhea secretly hid him away in a cave on the island of Crete, far from Cronus's reach. In place of the baby, she wrapped a stone in cloth and handed it to Cronus. Without suspicion, Cronus swallowed it, believing he had secured his rule once again. But hidden in the cave, the child grew strong, raised by nymphs and protected by powerful forces. His name was Zeus, and he was destined to change the world forever.
Zeus grew up in secrecy, far from his father's reach. He was raised by the nymphs in a hidden cave on Mount Ida, where they fed him with honey and the milk of the divine goat Amalthea. As he grew older, he became strong, intelligent, and determined. But he was not just any child. He was born with the destiny to overthrow Cronus, just as Cronus had done to Uranus. Gaia and Rhea had been waiting for this moment, and now it was time for Zeus to reclaim what was stolen. He could not defeat his father alone, so he sought wisdom from Metis, the goddess of cunning. She devised a plan to make Cronus vulnerable, a trick that would bring back his lost siblings and weaken his power. Disguising himself as a humble servant, Zeus entered Cronus's palace. He was careful, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Metis had given him a special potion, designed to force Cronus to vomit out his swallowed children. Zeus mixed the potion into his father's drink, and as Cronus drank, he felt a violent pain rise inside him. Suddenly, one by one, the children he had swallowed were released. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. Though they had been trapped for years, they emerged strong, filled with rage against their father. They had been denied their place in the world, and now, together, they would take back what was rightfully theirs. But defeating Cronus would not be easy. The Titans still ruled, and many stood by their leader. A great war, known as the Titanomachy, was about to begin. Zeus and his newly freed siblings needed allies, so they turned to the forgotten prisoners of Uranus. The Cyclopes and the Hecatoncheires. These mighty beings had been trapped for centuries. But Zeus, showing the wisdom of a true leader, freed them from their underground prison. Grateful for their freedom, the Cyclopes gifted Zeus and his brothers powerful weapons. Zeus received the thunderbolt, a weapon of unmatched power. Poseidon was given the trident, which could shake the earth and control the seas. Hades received the helm of darkness, allowing him to vanish at will. With their new strength and divine weapons, the battle for the world had begun. The battle between the Titans and the Olympians shook the heavens and the earth. It was a war unlike anything the world had ever seen, lasting for 10 long years. The sky roared with Zeus's thunderbolts. The seas trembled under Poseidon's mighty trident, and the earth cracked as the Hecatoncheires hurled massive boulders at their enemies. The Titans, led by Cronus, were powerful, but they lacked unity. They fought with brute strength, while Zeus and his allies fought with strategy. The Cyclopes forged weapons, the gods coordinated their attacks, and the Hecatoncheires unleashed chaos with their 100 arms. Slowly, the tides of war began to shift in favor of the Olympians. Despite his strength, Cronus realized he was losing. One by one, his Titan allies fell, either captured or defeated. Some, like Oceanus, refused to fight at all, sensing the inevitable outcome. But Cronus, proud and stubborn, refused to surrender. In a desperate move, he called upon his most fearsome Titan allies, Atlas, Hyperion, and Coeus, to launch one final attack. The battle reached its peak as Zeus faced Cronus directly. Thunder roared, the earth trembled, and the sky was set ablaze. With one final strike, Zeus hurled his thunderbolt with all his strength. The blast sent Cronus crashing to the ground, defeated. The war was over and the reign of the Titans had ended. As punishment, Zeus imprisoned most of the Titans in Tartarus, the deepest part of the underworld. It was a dark
endless abyss, guarded by the Hecatonchires to ensure they would never escape. But Zeus showed mercy to some. He did not imprison all Titans. Those who had remained neutral or helped him were allowed to stay. As for Cronus, he was not sent to Tartarus, but instead exiled to a distant land, where he would spend eternity in solitude. The world was finally free from his rule, and a new era had begun. But this was only the beginning. Zeus and his siblings had won the war, but now they had to build the world anew. The question remained, how would they rule, and could they do better than the Titans before them? With the Titans defeated, the world stood at the edge of a new era. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades gathered to decide how they would divide the universe among themselves. It was clear that one of them had to be the ruler of all, but they also needed balance. So they agreed to settle the matter through a draw, each choosing their domain by fate. Zeus, the strongest, drew the sky and heavens, becoming the king of the gods. Poseidon took the seas, ruling over the vast oceans with his mighty trident. Hades, though powerful, was left with the underworld, a realm of shadows and lost souls. Though he accepted his fate, a bitterness grew within him, one that would later shape the balance of power in the world. With Zeus as the ruler of the gods, he set out to establish order. He built his palace on Mount Olympus, the highest peak in the world, where the gods would gather and rule. One by one, he gave roles to his siblings. Hera, his sister and soon-to-be wife, became the goddess of marriage and family. Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, was given control over the harvest and food. Hestia, the goddess of home and hearth, ensured that the sacred flame of Olympus never died. The world was shaping into something greater, but Zeus knew they needed more than just gods. They needed life, creatures, humans, and beings to worship and maintain balance. This was when he turned to Prometheus, the wisest Titan who had sided with the Olympians. Prometheus, gifted with foresight, saw the potential for a world filled with mortal beings. He shaped the first humans from clay, carefully molding them to resemble the gods, but with one difference. They were weak, vulnerable, and without divine power. Zeus admired the creation, but saw them as mere playthings, creatures meant to serve and entertain the gods. But Prometheus felt differently. He saw humans as something more, beings capable of greatness. However, without fire, they were helpless against the darkness, unable to grow or survive. So, Prometheus made a choice. One that would anger Zeus and change the fate of humanity forever. Prometheus knew that humans could not thrive without fire. Fire was more than just warmth. It was knowledge, progress, and survival. But Zeus had forbidden humans from having it, fearing that with fire, they would become too powerful. Prometheus, however, defied the king of the gods. One night, under the cover of darkness, he climbed Mount Olympus and stole a burning ember from the sacred fire. He hid it inside a hollow reed and carried it down to the mortal world. When he gifted fire to humanity, everything changed. The cold, helpless creatures suddenly had light in the darkness, heat in the winter, and the ability to cook, forge, and build. Civilization had begun, and with it, the rise of mankind. When Zeus discovered what had happened, his rage shook the heavens. He saw fire as a divine power, something meant only for the gods. To him, Prometheus had not only disobeyed, but also challenged his authority. This could not go unpunished. As the ruler of Olympus, Zeus decided to make an example of Prometheus. He ordered his capture, and once the Titan was seized, Zeus devised a cruel and eternal punishment. Prometheus was chained to a lonely rock in the Caucasus Mountains, where every day an eagle, the sacred bird of Zeus, would tear into his flesh and eat his liver. But because he was immortal, his wounds would heal every night, only for the torture to repeat the next day. It was a punishment meant to last forever. However, Zeus was not finished. He believed that humanity too needed to learn a lesson. Since they had been given fire, they would also receive something else. Something that would bring both joy and suffering. Zeus ordered Hephaestus, the god of craftsmanship, to create the first woman, a beautiful and irresistible being named Pandora. She was gifted with charm, curiosity, and a sealed jar containing all the world's evils. Zeus sent her to Prometheus, the brother of Prometheus, as a gift. Though Prometheus had warned Prometheus never to accept anything from Zeus, he was enchanted by Pandora's beauty and took her as his wife. What happened next would unleash disaster upon the world, forever changing the fate of humanity.
Pandora lived happily with Prometheus, unaware of the true purpose behind her creation. She had everything: a loving husband, a beautiful home, and gifts from the gods. But there was one thing that stood out: a mysterious jar, sealed tightly, given to her by Zeus himself. She had been warned never to open it, but inside her, curiosity grew stronger each day. The gods had given her many gifts: beauty, intelligence, charm. But they had also given her an uncontrollable desire to know the unknown. The jar called to her, whispering secrets she could not ignore. It was only a matter of time before she could resist no longer. One day, when Prometheus was away, Pandora's curiosity overwhelmed her. She reached for the jar, her heart pounding. Slowly she lifted the lid, expecting to find treasure or wisdom. But what came out was nothing she could have imagined. A dark cloud of despair, pain, and suffering burst into the world. Disease, war, greed, hunger, and all the evils of existence spread across humanity like wildfire. The golden age of peace was shattered in an instant. Pandora screamed, trying to close the jar, but it was too late. The world had changed forever, and nothing could undo what had been done. However, as she looked inside the nearly empty jar, she saw one last thing lingering at the bottom. Something small, yet glowing faintly. It was hope. Though all the evils had escaped, hope remained, refusing to leave. With shaking hands, Pandora released it, letting it flow into the world. The gods had allowed suffering, but they had also left a way for humans to endure it. No matter how much pain or darkness existed, hope would always remain. This was Zeus's final lesson to mankind. Power came with consequences, and curiosity had a price. But in the face of all suffering, hope would never die. With Pandora's jar opened, humanity had entered a new age. One filled with both suffering and resilience. War, disease, and greed spread across the world. But so did love, courage, and wisdom. The gods watched from Olympus, each playing their part in shaping the fate of mortals. Zeus, though harsh in his punishments, had established order. He ruled with an iron will, ensuring that the mistakes of the Titans would not be repeated. But his reign was far from peaceful. Conflicts among gods and mortals would continue, each shaping the myths and legends that would be told for generations. The world had changed, but its story had only just begun. Meanwhile, Prometheus remained chained to his rock, suffering endlessly for his defiance. Yet, he never regretted his choice. He had given fire to humanity, knowing that with it, they could build, learn, and grow beyond the limits set by the gods. He endured his torment, holding on to the belief that one day he would be free. That day came when a great hero, Heracles, passed through the mountains and saw the Titans suffering. With a mighty strike, he broke Prometheus's chains, defying Zeus's will. Though the king of the gods was furious, he allowed Prometheus to go free, recognizing that his punishment had lasted long enough. The cycle of rebellion and rule continued, proving that even the gods were not beyond change. And so, the world of Greek mythology was born, filled with gods, heroes, and mortals, all struggling for power, love, and survival. The creation of the world had been chaotic, shaped by battles and betrayals, but it had led to something greater. From the emptiness of chaos came Gaia. From Gaia came the Titans. From the Titans came the Olympians. And from them came humanity. The story of the gods was not one of perfection, but of struggle, balance, and fate. And through it all, one truth remained. No matter how much the world changed, hope would always endure, carrying humanity forward into the unknown. The Greek myth of creation is not just a story of gods and power. It is a reflection of the struggles, choices, and consequences that shape life itself. No matter how dark the world may seem, there is always hope. It is what drives us to move forward, to fight, and to believe in a better future.